Welcome to our presentation, Career Identity. How do students figure out what to be when they grow up? The researchers who put this presentation together basically used a literature review, student employment data, and a student career identity survey. The researchers explored gaps in employment at graduation between business students and liberal arts students. And the concepts that were studied were decision strategies, time spent exploring options, and the type of information received during the college career. The structure of the presentation is the more formal title would be related to Vocation Disclosure, the role of self-perception, identity, and career focus. We will go through employment data and our identity survey, of which we've included seniors and sophomores who were business students and liberal arts students. And we had some pretty good response rates from the survey. As you can see, business seniors 22.9, liberal arts seniors 20.4, sophomore business students 22.9, and sophomore liberal arts students 17.0. The way we're defining liberal arts students are major concentrations such as anthropology, Asian studies, classics, criminal justice, English, history, political science, psychology, and sociology. For business, we're looking at majors such as accounting, finance, math finance, management, marketing, sport management, and economics. So let us get started. In his book, What Should I Do with My Life? The True Story of People Who Answered the Ultimate Question, Poe Bronson directly deals with the decision-making process of individuals to create meaning in their lives. The book illustrates the obvious fear and confusion that corresponds with rethinking vocations and the path to searching for that meaning. After reviewing the many stories, it is clear that this search is very personal and very individual. Now, nowhere is this personal search more evident than on college campuses, where students are making choices about which school to attend within a university, such as the humanities program or a business program or a STEM program, and then choosing a concentration from the specific programs offered. To add pressure to these choices, published statistics follow at the end of the college experience with metrics such as employment rates. The one northeastern school in the U.S. that we looked at overall employment rate and the differential between these groups of business students and liberal arts students. And when we say employment rate, we specifically mean those students who were seeking employment and secured employment within 6 months of graduation. As you can see from this chart, we have, in this particular example, 95% of business students had secured employment after 6 months of graduation, as opposed to 82% of liberal arts students. This double-digit spread, no matter how we looked at the data, was fairly consistent. So when we looked at just the number of students in this population who were seeking employment, when we looked at just those who had done an internship in college, the gap was 83 to 74. When we looked at the percentage of those who were hired, who interned, that gap was 94 to 82. When we looked at the percentage who interned, of those who were hired, the percentage of those who interned, again, the gap there was 82 to 74. When we looked at the population of those who did everything, who interned and were hired, again, the gap was large. It was 78 to 61%. So, and when we're talking about hired versus interns, that does not necessarily mean that the internship and the full-time employment were with the same employer. So, with all of these statistics, any career counselor would admit that there are many more jobs available who are posted at schools for this category of all majors than for any specific business major category. And yet, the employment rate information suggests that business students seem to have an advantage. So the question is, why does that paradox exist? So let's kind of explore this role of perception and identity further. As a starting point to answer this question, it could be related to this concept of self-identity, which has been studied closely by Bruce Hood. In his book, The Self-Illusion, How the Social Brain Creates Identity, Hood suggests that the notion of the independent, coherent self is actually an illusion and not what it seems, and that reality, as we would perceive it, is not something that objectively exists, but something that our brains construct from moment to moment, interpreting, summarizing, and substituting information along the way. Self, then, is a product of our relationships and our interactions with others, and exists only in our brains. Learning occurs in this social context. We only perceive a part of what we see, small pieces of what's in front of us. We become ourselves through what Hood would say is neural connections, including our thoughts and our memories. And if there is no context for reality, the brain gives it to us to make sense. Our memories are not in stone, and instead they are active. They're not reliable. They're always being reinterpreted and reintegrated to fit with these characteristics of who we think we are. The brain becomes the spin doctor, if you will, of our experiences. So, for example, let's say I drew a circle, a three-quarter circle, and then I drew another one, and then I drew another one, and then I drew another one. So what we end up seeing is this square, emerging in the middle, right? Our brain is telling us that there's a square there, whether it exists or not. Our brain makes sense of it by saying that there is a white square in the middle of this pattern. Although Hood sees that self is an illusion, he puts forth it is one that humans cannot live without, that the self actually emerges during childhood, and the architecture of the developing brain enables us to become social animals dependent upon each other. This is a part of our survival, since the vast majority of humans need each other, and we live together by creating a sense of self. We are not a social species as others in the animal kingdom. We are more a collection of selves, each trying to figure out how he or she fits in. And this all begins in childhood and continues throughout our experience. We do not live independently, but we live, in our relationship with work, with family, with hobbies, with the political scenes, and we're meshed in between all of those things. Connecting this to career aspirations, consider when a student or any job seeker is asked, "Tell me about yourself," during an interview. We answer in bits and pieces of information that our brain weaves into identity, at that point in time. Let's get a little deeper into the role of self-perception, identity, and career focus. Looking back at the employment data, it appears that liberal arts students, on average, do not emphasize career-related activities to the level business students do. This can be due to a number of factors. It could be due to peers not focusing on career versus what occurs with business students. It could also be due to a lack of information for the brain to create a career identity, leaving self to be more defined as student without a career context. Or if a liberal arts student has a career context, it is based on this limited information. To this end, it is very plausible to hypothesize that liberal arts students spend more time in exploring behavior. Students with liberal arts degrees tend to take a bit longer to find a specific career path than a traditional business major because they spend more time exploring their options. However, the timing of exploring these options may or may not occur during the college experience. The college experience is designed for students to major in what interests them, and it would interest them most, and focus on building skills that will help them in a variety of career paths. And this may be the core issue as it relates to career. Let us start with a typical question that for students and parents. The question is, what can I do with my major? This question can be quite problematic. Whereas some majors, such as accounting, lead to obvious answers. I can be an accountant. Others, such as English, history, or other liberal arts concentrations, do not lead to the same level of clarity. The question, what can I do with my major, could actually be the wrong question. It could lead to frustration due to not having an answer, causing self-identity not to include career, since the brain does not have information to create the appropriate connections. Another question typically asked of students is, what are you interested in? This typically leads to answers such as, I like sports, or I want to get into healthcare, or I want to help people. None of these answers comes with a tidy, what will you be doing in sports? Whereas the first question about major is focused on the what. The second question focuses on the where, or the field, or the industry. And the answers are likely coming from specific incidents or interactions in the student's life to this point. The what and where questions lead to answers related to social connections made throughout a student's life with the boundaries of limited life experiences. The answers can be, my mother is a lawyer and it looks interesting, or I attended a lecture from someone, who's doing work with the homeless people, or I really enjoy hockey. Oops, sorry about that. So what's missing is the how. The student will actually be contributing through a set of acquired skills. The ironic aspect of this is that the college experience actually is instrumental in building a wide range of practical skills, assessing, evaluating, analyzing, documenting, recommending, projecting, strategizing, implementing, creating, researching, forecasting, improving, increasing, managing, and a host of other skills. However, in the case of the liberal arts students, the connection between these functional skills are not connected to the what and the where in the same way as it is for business students. The liberal arts students are left to make these connections on their own without the experiences to do so. Interestingly, when students with liberal arts majors are employed, they end up in many of the same functional areas, industries, and companies as business students. And it appears those who are successfully hired do so by acquiring tangible experiences during their college career through part-time jobs or internships. they have asked better questions of themselves. So here's a list of arts and sciences students. You can see they were hired into many different functional areas, including things like engineering and finance and information management. You can also see the many different industries that they've been in, all over the board, including supply chain and real estate and e-commerce and government. And when we look at some of the companies that they were hired into, it would be very, easy to look at this list and say, this is a list of where business majors have been hired into. Right? So to summarize, rather than what can you do with your major, we can ask, what skills did you gain during college? Or better yet, what skills are required in the organizations and industries of interest to you? So we're going to continue looking at these issues of vocation disclosure, the role of self-perception, identity, and career focus. Unfortunately, not all students know how to ask the better questions, and may actually delay exploring career options due to an incomplete self-identity. One study showed how extensive hours in sport participation led to failure to explore alternative roles and the belief that one's career outcomes are unaffected by one's actions and are associated with lower self-efficacy, which means belief in ability to succeed for career decision-making tasks. Of student athletes who reported spending anywhere from 20 to 30 or more hours per week participating in their sport, few expressed an expectation to advance to their professional rank. And this makes sense based on Hood's research when considering social contexts, since self-identity is largely based on their sports endeavors with little context beyond those. Are these experiences limiting other experiences? It appears at minimum their psychosocial identity does not incorporate career, and their view of their own control about career is lacking. What is often referred to as career avoidance may actually be related to identity status and its impact on career indecision, which begins as early as adolescence. One study found ample evidence to suggest that during this period of vocational identity formation, many adolescents experience periods of indecision regarding their career, and that membership in a specific identity status group was significantly related to the nature and amount of career indecision. Based on Hood's work, this possibly illustrates how the brain is creating a pattern that the world is big and confusing rather than connecting how individuals fit. So if your peer group is unclear, being unclear is actually now the norm. Another study demonstrated how this peer group relationship with identity continues throughout one's life. In this study, influence of a significant other was most commonly associated with the transition to foreclosure, which is the commitment to something without personal exploration of self. This is further reinforcement of Hood's work that we do not live independently, which includes career. We are more a collection of selves, each trying to figure out how we fit, which may mean making a career secondary to identity, especially for those where the links between self-identity and career are not easily connected in the brain. The first question from our career identity survey was, how much control do you believe you have over your career success? In this case, there was no difference in responses for business and liberal arts seniors. About 3 of 4 believe they have a great deal or total control. Business sophomores reported the same level over career success as seniors in both groups. However, only 59.1% of liberal arts sophomores felt that they had a great deal or total control. There's an implication here for this, that these students may not be seeing a high level of support related to future. This could also mean they feel the need to career plan on their own. The next question was, in determining your career direction with your current thought process, who's your major influence? 23.9% of business seniors responded that a family member in that career versus 7.3% for liberal arts seniors. Sophomores responded similarly, 24% for business and 9.1% for liberal arts. 65.5% of liberal arts seniors responded they chose a career path independently of influences versus 55.2% of business seniors. Business sophomores responded 56%, basically the same as the business seniors. Liberal arts sophomores were the highest, 72.7%, in reporting independence to choose a career path. This may correspond to why liberal arts students are less likely to attend professional networking events while in college. 23.6% of liberal arts seniors responded that they heard about a career in a course versus 14.9% of business seniors. Business sophomores responded 14%, similar to the business seniors. And liberal arts sophomores responded 15.9%, much lower than liberal arts seniors, opening up questions about what their independent choices are actually based on. Students were asked how their chosen major related to their career path. 67.2% of seniors said directly related to my career path versus 40% of liberal arts seniors. Results were similar for sophomores, business 66%, liberal arts 48.8%. Liberal arts sophomores demonstrated a higher level of belief in this relationship than liberal arts seniors, possibly due to dealing with less adversity in dealing with career planning. Students were asked, how would you consider your peer group in terms of your career development? 64.1% of business seniors responded very influential or somewhat influential versus 50.9% of liberal arts seniors. Business sophomores responded at 60%. Liberal arts sophomores responded at 41.9%. So liberal arts students show a tendency to be less influenced in general and less so early in their college career. The factors influencing liberal arts students seem unclear. However, lack of definition related to tangible career-related skills may be a contributing factor. Another study showed that career aspects of self-identity, building off modern societal trends, that individuals are becoming increasingly responsible for their own work allocation. As a response, and in order to overcome an increasing social and work-related insecurity, individuals not only have to acquire specific career skills, but also a so-called career identity. The study defined a career identity as a structure of meanings in which the individual links his or her own motivation, interests, and competencies with acceptable career roles, and further elaborated the concept as a social learning process, implying the need for a strong learning environment. Career interests may be strongly determined by social groups. Whether this interest or illusion based on Hood's work, practically speaking, career identity is related to understanding one's skills and how they can be applied in a meaningful way. Another study found that identity status was related to career decision efficacy. Again, that's belief and ability to succeed, and differentiation of interests. But it was not associated with consistency of interests. Further, more advanced identity status dimensions were associated with higher decision self-efficacy and more differentiation of interests, which is very interesting. Business students, by starting with a specific focus, are positioned to see various aspects of business early in their career. However, liberal arts students may have lower belief in their early success because they are less aware of their practical skills. So students were asked, in terms of career path, do you believe it is better to try different things prior to committing to a career path, or is it better to commit to a specific career path early? 83.6% of liberal arts seniors responded it is better to try different things versus 69.7% of business seniors. Liberal arts sophomores responded 81.8%, similar to liberal arts the seniors. And then the business sophomores responded at 73.5%, similar to the business seniors. In terms of current career focus, the majority of both groups of seniors were focused on a specific career direction. Business 43.3%, liberal arts 49.1%. Liberal arts sophomores were similar, 45.5%, but business sophomores were much lower at 20%. And this is possibly because they have not started in any of their business classes yet. There was also no difference for seniors in the frequency of changing career direction over college career. And liberal arts sophomores responded, sophomores in general seemed less likely to change majors, possibly because not having enough exposure to the longer-term career issues at this point. Possible implications are considering what are students actually being exposed to related to what we mean by different things. It is really worth looking in further into the mix of coursework, practical experience, and exposure to professionals in these various groups. Students were asked whether your current career direction is based on many interests or specific interests. 74.5% of liberal arts seniors responded that their career direction is based on specific interest versus 64.2% of business seniors. Business sophomores responded at 61.4% at a similar level to business seniors. Liberal arts sophomores were the lowest at 56%. Despite taking on career planning on their own, at least early in college career, seem open to alternatives. This again prompts questions about whether liberal arts students are exploring enough, or if business students are given more opportunities to visualize different careers and also develop multiple interests. More work has been done that has found evidence that perception of work as a calling is associated with positive mental health, whereas perception of work as a career can be highly beneficial in terms of occupational success and satisfaction. Establishing a strong, self-chosen, positive, and flexible occupational identity appears to be an important contributor to occupational success, social adaptation, and psychological well-being. This creates the question, are students assessing their careers or making career decisions based on very limited information? What exposure do students receive to determine their options? We asked students, which better defines the work that you wish to do, a calling or a career? 67.2% of business seniors responded a career, while 61.1% of liberal arts seniors responded a calling. 63.6% of liberal arts students responded calling, similar to the seniors, and 82% of business sophomores responded career, possibly not expecting a true connection with personal passion and career. 59% of liberal arts seniors responded it would be very easy or somewhat easy to integrate personal interests into a career versus 44.3% of business seniors. I wonder if business seniors are more likely to be comfortable with this disconnection between career and calling, if they consider calling at all. Liberal arts sophomores responded 60.5%, focused on calling or passion, and business sophomores responded at 26%. More pronounced than seniors, again, possibly due to not having the opportunity to determine what parts of business they are actually interested in. Students who were asked, do you believe it will be easy or difficult to set career goals? 34.6% of liberal arts seniors responded it would be very difficult or somewhat difficult to set career goals versus 23.9% of business seniors. 34.6% of liberal arts seniors responded it would be very easy or somewhat easy to set career goals versus 37.3% of business seniors. Business sophomores responded 30% for difficult and 48% for easy, seeming optimistic about the future. Liberal arts sophomores responded 54.5% for difficult and much higher than the other groups, and they responded 15.9% for easy, much lower than the other groups. Students were asked how career directions related to personal identity. Both senior groups responded that career direction was either how they identified themselves as a person or partly. However, 10.4% of business seniors responded career direction was unrelated to personal identity versus 0% of liberal arts seniors. The responses were similar for sophomores, business 14%, liberal arts 4.5%. The vast majority in all groups saw a chosen career path as part of personal identity, ranging from 65% to 80%. Career as high identity ranged from 20% to 30%. These results may imply that students in general do not want to become their jobs and are seeking more of a balance between work and personal. Finally, students were asked in terms of career planning, what is the best time to define a career direction? 50.7% of business seniors responded sophomore year or sooner versus 41.9% of liberal arts seniors. Business sophomores responded to this time frame at 49%, similar to business seniors, and liberal arts sophomores responded at 77.3%, much higher than the other groups. These students are committing to a calling early, probably too soon, based on limited information and probably the least amount of career-related information. There have been attempts to influence vocation disclosure, and we'll dive into that a little bit next. There's been some work done attempting to incorporate goal setting and decision-making components into career identity. One group proposed that to generate this idea of career strivings, to answer the question, at this point in my career, I am trying to, and then they would follow that with, to what extent are you confident that this striving is attainable? To what extent do you believe this striving ultimately will help you build a successful career? To what extent is this striving motivated by a sense of calling? To what extent do you believe this striving will help experience meaning and purpose in your career? To what extent are you pursuing this striving with energy and regularity? To what extent do you receive emotional support from others as you pursue this striving? To what extent do you need help with this striving? So, again, some way to sort of, get under, how to help people through this conversation. Career Center practitioners, Gordon and McCoy, highlighted the perception that liberal arts degrees have no connection to career and no clear path to career success, and that at the very basic level, they tend not to understand their value to employers. They suggest as practical solutions to give students guidance on identifying and articulating key skills through a workshop, or as well as highlighting the skills students have, the opportunity to build during their courses. Similar to the skills matrix that you would see used in a corporate setting. In Ryan Craig's book, College Disrupted, The Great Unbundling of Higher Education, there is this is an illustration here that shows how to enhance the value for the expense of college education in a more skill-based model, looking at what do employers require, what do individuals need to be successful, what should colleges be imparting. In career planning efforts, the idea of not starting with the major as the course concentration, but instead of starting with skills acquired could be a great benefit to liberal arts students. So here's an example where this is for finance track, but there's no reason why this can't be done for liberal arts track, where in the left-hand column you have skills that are required out in the work world, and then divided by the different tracks offered, such as the core track, the corporate track, and the investment management track. Which courses are these? Can these skills be obtained? Right. So the course work can be chosen based on specific skill acquisition. In addition to career-related skills, acquiring decision-making skills might also be a priority. So the idea of asking profound and personal questions as part of an exploration process was articulated wonderfully by Spencer Johnson in his Yes or No, The Guide to Better Decisions. He suggests first asking practical head questions, such as am I meeting the real need, informing myself of options, and thinking it through. And then he follows this with a private heart question. Does my decision show I am honest with myself, trust my intuition, and deserve better? And the book walks you through the decision-making process, which can be applied to any situation. And using this method to help students consider decisions could be, really helpful, as they're confronting career decisions. Also, Robert Fritz, in his classic The Path of Least Resistance, he illustrated this idea of creative tension, that any of us has this innate power to create, and how this tension between one's vision, or what they love and will put their life energy into, and one's current reality, which is the truth of one's circumstance. So focusing on personal strategic vision can provide a way to overcome barriers that folks have in career planning. It can also facilitate the ability to plan the present based on a potential future. And this would also allow for connecting the ideas of career and calling. Mike Morrison, in his book, The Other Side of the Business Card, where your authentic leadership story begins, he suggests that there is a process that we take to action or inaction. It can be due to belief or confidence in the truth, without being absolute truth, but just confident that we know something, or that this idea that we know things that are fixed in our mind, and know what we need to do, or how to accomplish things. He talks about how to get the most out of our moments, and that certainty at times needs to be suspended, which is reminiscent of Hood's idea of self-illusion, or this idea of liberal arts majors locking into things too soon in their college career without enough information. Morrison also provides a very interesting approach to making progress. He says, first, we as individuals need to work on this idea of differentiation, to uncover our unique gifts and what makes us different or courageously ourselves. Next, individuals need to work on integration, which is how do we interact with others, and how we are something beyond ourselves, right? We are part of the world. We need to integrate into the world. This could be very, very useful approach to helping students figure out how the how part of contributing to an organization. And Morrison does a wonderful job using storytelling as a way to illustrate, what differentiation and integration look like, rather than relying just on pure academic assessments. Honestly, in my own writings, I learned how storytelling can really help individuals coalesce around a vision to create a successful future. So now we try to sum up some of these things. I guess the question is can we accelerate exploring behavior for students? We certainly encourage students to connect with career advisors early in their college careers to help make direct connections between their studies and career options. But it likely needs to go beyond this. There may be structural issues that prevent exploration. For example, business students are often required to take liberal arts courses to expand their knowledge and become more well-rounded. However, this is not reciprocated for liberal arts students who are not asked to take a business course. Reviewing the employment data from earlier, and the fact that liberal arts students tend to land in similar places as business students, that's an emerging trend. I mean, for liberal arts students who have a clear focus of interest and no interest in pursuing business per se, career identity could be fairly straightforward for them. An example would be a history major having a personal vision of becoming a history teacher. However, for the history major who does not desire that particular straight line path, there's a frustration due to a lack of understanding for potential career options. And since there are limited structures in place for liberal arts students to gain potentially valuable information related to careers, there is limited motivation to explore. Instead, the illusion of being stuck behind a desk or a used car salesman becomes part of the anti-career identity. And it appears that the language used on campuses can also hinder career identity, even within career development. For liberal arts students who successfully gain employment, they may have had experiences that promoted exploration behavior. For example, a student who, through some channel was fortunate enough to be exposed to an interesting business or a nonprofit, or how a specific role looks in an industry of interest, comes to, an obvious observation that everything in some way is a business. The term business is no longer a potential blockage and simply comes to mean that all organizations have a model that includes revenues and costs and customers and quality and rules and images. Even the manager of the Yankees has a desk, right? Feeding the homeless requires fundraising on some level. There are many societal questions that need to be addressed. Are internships purely educational experiences or a way for students to get a leg up in the world by doing real work? Is coursework purely academic or connected to life, after studies? Is career assessment based on academic approaches, or can they be based on life experience in the manner of Poe Bronson's "What Should I Do with My Life"? Can the general college experience include uncovering passion and calling, in addition to learning how to understand skills, set goals, and plan careers? Can colleges look at career holistically to include who they recruit, identifying employable skills within learning objectives, understanding what happens after graduation, and working with employers, industry experts, and alumni to stay current? These answers will take time. However, the lack of definitive answers should not get in the way of providing practical experiences very early in students' college careers. There must be a way to make these practical experiences socially acceptable for all students. There must be a way for students to evolve their self-identity, including career, with more information than is currently made available to them. So thank you for your time and attention on this, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Again, this last page is a review of the implications that I just mentioned, implications for how we should be looking at internships, coursework, how we assess skills, and in general, what the general college experience should look like. So again, this was a fun study. I hope in your own organizations you can do a similar study and we can compare notes and see if we can move things forward and be innovative together. Again, thank you very much for your time and attention.